Well, hello everyone. Welcome to my sewing room. Today I'm inviting you in to sew with me to kick off the Scrappiness is Happiness quilt along. And this is week 1, so that means it's October 31st. Happy Halloween, everyone. And so what we're going to do for this quilt along is there are 32 blocks in the book. Each block goes into a quilt. And what we're going to do is this sew along is going to be 32 weeks, and we're just going to do one block a week. And so we'll just be doing, like a sampling of everything that's in the book and end up putting it into a sampler that I designed. And so Kimberly is doing this sampler along with me as well. And so on their website, on their blog, which is the Jolly Jabber blog, they have the free PDF, and they did a blog post. And so I will link to that so that you can read more information about this quilt along. And I will also link to the free PDF, which is the setting for the sampler. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through alphabetical order. And so today is the Buzzy Bee Block. And so this book is divided into 2 separate block sections. So the first section is the 1 block wonder, and that's where there's just 1 block from here to here that you just sew together without any sashings or anything like that. And so we're just going to go in alphabetical order starting here, and then we'll start into these blocks as well. So with the exception of this Fat Quarter Flirt, because we're using that block not in the front of the sampler but in the back for the label, and so we're going to skip that and go to the very end to do that. Okay, and so in my Sew Your Stash series, as I was designing this book and sewing a lot of the scrappy quilts and blocks for this book, I did a lot of tutorials, right? That's one of them, the Lincoln Logs. I did a lot of tutorials in my Sew Your Stash series. And so I won't be doing a tutorial on those blocks during those weeks because, of course, I've already done a tutorial. But you can tune into my channel and just look at my Sew Your Stash series. You can click on my playlists, and you can see those for when you go to do those blocks. But this week, since I did not do a tutorial for that, I'll be doing the Buzzy Bee. And next week, I didn't do the Calico Mushroom, so I'll be doing that next week. And as we go along, I'll just show up here on YouTube and on Mondays and show you those tutorials for those blocks that I have not done yet. And so let's turn to the Buzzy Bee block. Okay, so we've got here, I'll just cover up those cutting instructions. But anyway, so here is the block. And then in the next pages, you can see the quilt. Okay. And so in the book, I always show you right here my scrap recipe, meaning which baskets that I cut out of. And so for this bee, I'm doing the 3.5-inch scrap basket. Sometimes I use several sizes depending on what I need. But because these stripes are 3.5 inches tall, as well as the wing is 3.5 inches tall, and this head is 3.5 inches wide, I'm just going to use my 3.5-inch scrap baskets. Now, in the book here, right here, I talk all about my scrappy stash. I've also done a detailed tutorial in my Sew Your Stash series about how I save my fabrics, leftovers, how I buy fabric and cut them up for my scrappy stash as well and add them all together so that I have just a little bit of a sampling in several usable sizes of all of the fabrics that I have. So I love that because I can just pull my baskets in and go through all of them and see the many colors that I have and go through instead of having to go through my closet or all of my many baskets of fabric. So it's really nice to be able to do it that way. So I also wanted to show you a close-up of the block. Here's Buzzy Bee. It's 14 inches square, okay? And this is traditional yellow bee, but you know me, I love color, and I've always done several bee blocks. Look at that aqua one. So I've always done several bee blocks for all of my, for my books. I have a bee block in every book, and a few even outside of the book. But I don't like to just do yellow bees. I like to do all different colors because it makes me happy to see them in all my colors. And so I just wanted to show you a sampling of different backgrounds, just scrappy backgrounds. You can just use low volume for the wings. You can use blacks, browns. This is steel, one of my colors, and this is raisin. You know, they both work just as easily. Let's see. I'll go ahead and tell you what fabrics collections these are from, because I know I always get that question. So this background right here is from Farm Girl Vintage. This is the Chicken Tracks, and this is from my Bee Basics. This is from Granny Chic, and this is from Bee Plaids. Okay. And then this one right here is from Bee Cross Stitch, this background. And this is from Farm Girl Vintage. This is from Cookbook. And then this is from Prim. And so it doesn't take very many fabrics for this block. You just need a background, a wing, and the stripes for the bee, the colors. And so I went ahead and started cutting. Let's see, I've got 2 wings here. For another block, I wanted to do a pink bee. I went ahead and labeled with my So Handy stickers right here on my background. I don't think I'm gonna label my wings because I obviously know what they are because they're the wings. And so I wanted to cut one showing you how I use my 3.5 inch baskets. But first I wanted to talk about my background. I do not cut my backgrounds, and I know I've told you this before. Excuse me. I don't cut my backgrounds into strips or squares necessarily. I just leave them and have a basket or two that I work out of, because each quilt, sometimes I use scrappy backgrounds, which is what I'll be doing for this sampler quilt. Sometimes I use all the same, and so there's really no way of guessing what I would need for backgrounds to go ahead and cut them into strips. And so that's what I do there. I just wanted to show you that basket there. And I love to use scrappy backgrounds a lot. And so this is a sample of one of my 3.5 inch strips. And I put this pink one on the top here because I knew I wanted to cut from that. And so all I do with that, because it's so fast and easy to cut these, is because I already know that it's 3.5 inches tall. And of course, sometimes if it's a little bit taller or whatever, then I can trim it off. But I'm just gonna go ahead, let me push this up a little bit to make sure that you can see. And cut off that for the bee stripe. I'm going to turn these around, maybe fold them up, because I'm going to have to cut 2 squares from this. And I had pressed this last night. I was going to go ahead and cut it, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll cut it in front of you guys so you could see what I'm doing. But normally if I pull out a strip or something, I'll just have my iron right here, and I'll just go ahead and quickly press it up. And so that's for the bee body there. And now what I've got left over here, wow, I don't even know how that worked out, but that's an exact 3.5 inch square. So what I'm going to do with that is just put that on my little bowl that I leave with my leftovers. And then the next thing that I need to do is cut for the dark stripes and for the head and for the antenna. And so this is another basket that I have them separated into colors. And so I put this one on top that I was going to use for that. So I hope you can see that by simply just already starting out with strips of fabric that are kind of pre-sized from my leftovers and things like that, that it's so much faster to cut. And it just really isn't a big deal, but it also is a lot easier, like I say, to not have to haul all of my baskets over here, my great big baskets, and rummage through all of the dark fabrics that I have looking for a body or whatever. I just know that I have a stack here, you know, in my basket of fabrics that I can go through and choose from. And that's really nice. Okay, so I know I need 2 squares out of this, and I'm gonna cut 2 2-inch squares, and I know that this is a 3.5-inch strip, but I can still cut 2-inch squares from it. Fold this up and put it back in my strips. Turn these. Hope I'm not getting too close to myself there so you can't see. And I'm going to cut 2 squares then, but see, I've got 1.5 inches wide left now because that was 3.5. We know that 3.5 minus 2 is 1.5. So what I do there, this goes in the garbage and these go in my bowl. So what I do is I have a bowl. Now don't laugh at me because this is really full. But I have, it's time to divide these up and put these away, but I usually keep this by my cutting station here. And I just put all my leftovers that I just showed you what I have left over here for my strips when I'm cutting up, and I just throw them in here. And then usually on the weekend or something like that, I'll go through, and obviously I haven't done this for a couple of weeks, and I'll just divide up the sizes of squares and put them into my bins. So these are all leftover squares that I have from my trimmings of my easy corner triangles, and when I have these strips, when I've cut from strips and I have leftovers on the ends, then I'll cut them into squares if that's all I have left at the end. Okay, and so I can go ahead and put my So Handy stickers on here if I want, but there's so few pieces that I think I'm just going to go ahead and leave them like that. And now let's go over to the machine and I will show you how easy it is to put this block together. I think you'll find out how fun and easy this is to put this Buzzy Bee together. Okay, here we are. Today we're going to sew with Miss Dolly, and what I'm going to do for this block is, you can see here, I'll show you over here, is you can see basically it goes into rows like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to put that into rows. And so I usually start from the top down. So I'm going to start first with these 2 pieces right here for the antenna. Okay. And then I need these 4 pieces E right here. I'm just going to move this sticker over to the corner. Now you can sew over these. My So Handy stickers, you can iron over them, you can sew over them, and then when you remove them, they don't leave any residue at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these corners. Now you can mark a line here if you want to from corner to corner on the background, but because I have my Seam So Easy guide, I'm going to follow this center line here, and that saves me from marking. But that's what that looks like. It's just barely like that. And I'm going to follow this white corner to this white corner on this line. So I'm going to start right here. Let me put my little stitchy readers in so I can see. And see how I'm just following this corner right here, not of the brown piece, but of the white right here of the background, following right on that line. And because this line is lined up with your needle, that's always going to work out that way. So we're going to sew one of these on each side, and that's how we're going to get these really skinny antennae here. So just start in the corner and then just follow. Go as fast or as slow as you need to. And then I'm going to use my little starters and stoppers scraps of fabrics that I use while I'm filming, but when I'm not filming, I do not use scraps of fabric. I actually am sewing bonus quilts and sewing, you know, squares together over here. Cass, do you want to see? I've always got projects going here. So, all right. So what I'm going to do now is just trim this off by an approximate 1/4 inch. Now remember, you don't want to trim on this side where the raisin color is sticking out. You want to trim on the corner of the white square. And then I'm just going to pull that out. See, no residue. I'll just stick that right there. I should have just took it off, but I just wanted to show you that you could. Okay, so then these are too tiny to do anything with at all whatsoever. They might look larger in the camera, but they're super duper tiny. So then I'm going to come over here, and because these are sewn on an angle, I'm going to be really careful not to stretch this out. I'm not going to push on the iron to open this, but I'm going to use that tip right there. That's why I love these vintage irons, to just open that and try not to distort it at all. And that's why I like to use smaller irons and pointy iron and a really hot iron, because if I use a bigger iron, I can't see what I'm doing here as I'm trying to press those open. And so that's why I like to do that. And then I like to use these quilter's clappers from Riley Blake to absorb the heat and to make that, you know, lie flatter when it cools off. Okay. And so now I'm going to take and the other 2 squares I have to go on the other corner. And by the time, I'll show you. Now these are just supposed to be little narrow antennae. It doesn't matter if they end up a little bit wonky, that's okay. You just follow that line. And you can also, the reason I said that, I kind of felt that push over a little bit because of this seam right here and the foot. I feel like I went off of that corner a little bit right here. So all you have to do is just run it back through, because I'm not pressing these, I don't happen to be pressing these seams open. I'm just going to press them towards the white, so it doesn't matter if you run it back through. Let's see if I need to do it that way. That one's off by just a little bit because of this bump right here. Kind of pushed it over, so I'm going to have keep a little bit more control here. There we go. Might be just a little needle width closer. And that's what they look like at this point. I'm going to go over and set it right here. And then I'm going to take this and trim it off. I'll trim this one off. Let's see what they look like. So this one is a little teeny bit narrower in the corner. See what I mean right here? This one looks pretty good, but I'm not, you know, going to do them over or anything like that. They're just antenna, and remember, by the time you take up the 1/4 inch seam, it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to put that there. Then I'm going to take the head here, and I'm going to take these 2 pieces, H. I'll just go ahead and take that off now. And I'm just going to put an easy corner triangle on each side right here for this and this. And I'm going to do the same thing. I just follow the corners right there. I'm going to run that through. Normally I'd be sewing 2 or 3 blocks at a time, so I'm chain piecing, but because I'm just showing you one block, that's why I'm putting these scraps of fabric in between. And then it's just important that you line these up right on the corner. Okay, then I'm going to trim these off right here. And I'm going to press these towards the outside. Now in this block, some of the seams I press open, but not all of them. And I'll show you when I think there's going to be a little bit too much bulk. If I press to one side, that's why I press open. And I'll show you when I get to that point. So what I'm going to do with these now is make them go like this, that direction, that way. And just put right sides together. And sew them up. And I like to start in the bulky corners so I can get under there. There we go. See, there you go right there. That piece right there, and this we're going to press open right here. So usually I'll just kind of start it with my fingernail, or I like to grab my seam roller here. And again, I press, and I don't iron as much as I press. Okay, now I've got this piece ready to go, and just do a little tidying up for a minute. Just give them a chance for that to cool. And now I'm just going to sew this to this, just like there. Now, if you're a pinner, of course you can go ahead and pin, but you know, if you've watched me before, you know I don't pin unless I absolutely have to, or if I'm doing borders or, you know, a super long strips or something I do. But when I'm doing my patchwork, I usually do not pin. And when I'm sewing these segments together, I'm using this line right here. This is my 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then this, I'm going to go ahead and press. I'm going to set my seams. And then I'm going to press towards the head. I could press open, but it would be really bulky where these seams meet right here. So I'm just going to do that. All right, so while I'm waiting for that to cool off, I'm going to go ahead and start on the wings. So what I want you to remember about the wings is they are mirror imaged, meaning, see, you're going to have opposite corners here, so these aren't going to be exactly the same. Meaning, so you've got your 2 F squares right here. Meaning the small square is going to go up there in that corner, and the small square is going to go in this opposite corner here, okay? And so I'm just going to lay that there. And this is what I mean where you can't do them the same. See, I can't turn that. This would not be the same because the angle is not the same. So whenever I have mirror imaged, I always lay them out like that and put the opposite squares on each other so I know that I'm doing it correctly. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm going to have to trim these and press them back before I can add this bottom larger one right here, which is D. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just then I'm going to come over here. This looks good. I'm going to set these seams, and again, I'm going to try not to stretch. Just going to open it up. Use the tip of that iron to open it. Put that on there. While I'm waiting for those, I'm going to go ahead and add these side pieces right here, which are these 2 B pieces. Oh, I just realized something. That's correct that way, but this is not cut 2 inches. This is too long. So I'm going to fix that right now. So in the cutting, when I was cutting in front of you guys, what did I do different than I wasn't supposed to do? Let's see. Oh, I cut it 2.5 instead of 2. So I'm just going to grab this and grab my cutter and cut off a 1/2 inch. You can always tell those mistakes when the side pieces don't line up, right? So I'm just going to lay this right here and cut off a 1/2 inch. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. See, it's always good to make these mistakes on camera. If you call them mistakes, that's just part of quilting, right? I mean, sometimes we get the cutting right and wrong, but just want to go to, just want to show you without editing it out that that's just part of quilting. And it's just not a big deal. All right. Now I can go ahead and add the other side. Now this little, see how this is the correct size? See how this is a little teeny bit wonky right here? All I do is just make up for that in the sewing. I just let that stick out past that 1/4 inch a little bit. This is, you know, getting to know your blocks up close and personal, which is what I like to do, each piece at a time. See, that looks nice that way. And then I'm going to go ahead and set these aside here. I'm going to press these seams to set them on both sides so that they're smooth. And then I'm going to press out away from the head and the antenna. Now this one, I know that they're open all the way, and so I'm you know, feel safe to go back and forth here and press it flat. I'm going to put that clapper probably on both sides there. And sometimes I even like to put an extra one on for weight. Okay, so now I'm going to take these D, which are a little bit larger, and put on the opposite corner this way on the wings. Line them up. go ahead and trim those off. Now you see why I have so many clappers going on. And then I'm just going to put this over here. Set these seams. Try not to stretch. Okay. And then the next thing I can do is work on these right here. So here's the body and here's the stripe. I'm going to show you a different approach how you can do this. You can just sew these together first. I know, as I've told you before, sometimes I like to add the easy corner triangles on afterwards, after pieces are sewn together if I can. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and press. It doesn't really matter. I could press that open. I'm just going to press towards the dark there. And I'm going to go back to this row right here. I've got these easy corner triangles left on each side of the wing. Okay, so that's that wing right there. That one goes that way. So what I'm going to do is place this on this end of this wing and follow the direction of the smallest, meaning I'm going to sew from here to here. Okay. I'm going to start there in the corner and follow along here. And again, you can mark your lines if you want. I just like to get sewing as fast as I can, so I don't want to take all that time and mark the lines unless I have to. And again, I've laid that there, and I'm going to follow that the same direction as the small. Okay, then before I trim like that, see, that's what you want to, that's what that wants to look like. And that's what that one needs to look like. So now I can go ahead and trim, make sure that I sewed that correctly, going the correct angle. Now on these 3.5 inch squares, when I trim them off, I can get 1.5 inch squares from there. And so I will save those and trim those up later. And go ahead and put those in my 1.5 inch square bin. Okay, set that aside. Set my seams. Okay, so now I've got this right here, and now I can go ahead and add these easy corner triangles onto this pink, onto the bottom part of the bee. I could have done this before I added to the strip, or I could have done it after. I just wanted to show you two different ways. One way is in the book, and this is another way. But, you know, as my grandma used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So you don't have to sew this block in the order that I am. I'm just showing you, you know, several different, I don't know if I should say several different ways, but just a different way and trim that. And again, because this originated from a 3.5 inch square, I'll be able to get 1.5 inches from that. And I have to set this seam and press it back before I can add the other one. So I'm just going to turn that over. Now these wings are completed, and when I sew this together, that's another of the stripe here. So while that is cooling, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, when I'm sewing something together like this, I could have pressed these seams open or closed. It doesn't matter. If it was a tiny 6-inch block, for sure I would be pressing them open. Probably these blocks I pressed open. This I did close, just so I can kind of show you. But when I have a choice to either start my seam on this end or this end, I like to start with the bulky end, the ones with the seams, so that I can start right there and make sure that they don't get distorted in any way. So that's kind of a little tip. Okay, so for sure I'm going to press this open because I don't really want to press it to one side, but I do want to set the seam first. Especially where those meet right there, I really like to use that roller real quick. And just get that nice and hot with the iron. Okay, now I can go ahead and do the other easy corner triangle so we can form that little pointy bottom of the bee, or the little bee bum. Okay, again, following along here. Trimming off. Saving for my squares. When I trim these off, that's what I'll end up making 4 patches out of these for another project. Set the seam. Okay, so now I've got that. That can go on the bottom of the head here. See that stripe right there, but I'm just going to set them aside. And now I've got these 2 A pieces right here that are going to go on the side right here. I keep sliding my pedal all over the place for some reason this morning. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and sew the other side on before I press. Okay. Set these seams. Press away from the bee. A lot of times when I press something like this, you notice I pull on one side just to make sure they're open all the way so I don't get any pleats here. Put those on there. And so then the last two pieces that I have of the background are the G right here. And that is just the top and the bottom, which is what makes it 14 inches square. And I added these within the blocks as kind of built-in sashings so that you can see in the quilt, you can turn these bees going any way you want to now because the block is square. And so what I've got is this ready to sew, this ready to sew together, this ready to sew together, this one right here, and then the bottom one. And so I'm going to go ahead and sew them together, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've just got this pink bee on the design board here. Okay, there's the front. There's the back of my block. And it ends up right now, it's going to measure 14.5 by 14.5. And when you sew it into your quilt, you know, it'll be 14 inches finished. But I really love doing these different colored bees. I just think they're so fun. And because this is a one block wonder in that section of the book, that means it's so easy to make any size quilt with this. Like you can make, just sew 4 of them together going different directions and make a small quilt. You can make a table runner very easily. It's just really fun to be able to use this block in so many different ways. And I hope you like this Buzzy Bee block. It makes me want to keep going and make another quilt with all different colors of bees. But anyway, there we go. And let's see, I hope I told you everything that you need to know. So 32 weeks for 32 blocks. I'm going to leave links for the sampler finishing. And so for the free PDF on that, I'm going to leave a link to Kimberly's blog, which is the Jolly Jabber, that talks more in detail about the sew along. And I will be back next week and show you the calico mushroom. And I'll chat with you later.